This is gonna go to the group. 1 second. Let me just.
How many people are we expecting?
Cancel. What'd you say, Yoel? This group has about 30 families, 30 mommies in my group. Your internet is going in and out, so it's hard for me to hear what you're saying, Yoel. So basically, most of the families are LA based. That's where I'm from. We've been living there for the last 7 years. And I recently moved out to Florida with my family. So I'm on East Coast time, but most of my friends in the group are on West Coast time. So I don't know how many people will actually join us today, which is fine.
Is that better? Is that internet better?
Oh, yeah, much better. Yeah.
I got to open this though because the Wi-Fi is in the room.
Okay, no problem.
How many people did you say we're expecting?
I said, I don't know how many people will show up to I was explaining that most of the people in the group are LA based. And because of the time difference, they weren't able to do, most people are still sleeping in LA on a Sunday morning. So I'm just going to ask away. I already know what most of the people want to know. And I'm going to be sharing this recording with them. If some people decide to show up, that's cool. But I don't really anticipate many people showing up today, if at all, and that's fine. The thing is, our group is not like this formal group. It's just mommies that are very good friends of mine, and many people are very serious about doing Aliyah right now. And this is actually the first call I've set up with people in communities. I have like a whole lineup coming up in the next few weeks. After this call, I have a Bet Shemesh call. Then we have one for Efrat. We're doing Netanya, Zichron, like all sorts of places. But for now, I'll just preface it with what the goal is of this call, and you guys can guide me. Firstly, I know, Yoel, your family was in America. That's how we met. You guys were in America for a while. And I wanted to ask you what your story is and how you ended up at Pardes Chana, because that's what we're focusing on today is Pardes Chana. Was that your first place where you landed when you got to Israel, or did you start off someplace else?
Well, we made Aliyah actually 10 years ago is what happened. We moved to Nachlaot. A lot of the, right after we got married, a lot of the Anglos there. We're talking about moving to somewhere that's a little more space. Nachlaot is a neighborhood in Jerusalem. It's a concrete jungle. A lot of them are talking about like Zichron Yaakov, and I knew that actually Pardes Chana was up and coming. They announced they had a direct train to Tel Aviv. It's on Route 65, which is like the highway up to the north, to the Galilee, and then also 2, 4, and 6. These are the main highway arteries running north and south. And it was very green. I read good things about it. I actually convinced some people to move there and ended up joining them. Then we came back to Philly for a little less than 3 years. And then when we made Aliyah, we moved straight to Pardes Chana. So yeah, it was somewhere I wanted to be for a while.
And I think the first thing I'm going to focus on is Parnassa-wise, because my husband is always asking me this question because my husband works in tech. And so he's a manager in a software company that deals like with HR solutions. And I mean, that's what he does now. I don't know in Israel what he'll be doing, but he's thinking that most opportunities will be in the Tel Aviv area and potentially Jerusalem too. So for people who, I know there's a bunch of people in my group whose husbands work in tech. How convenient is it to travel from Pardes Chana to Tel Aviv area?
I mean, there's a direct train. I mean, there's a pandemic now, so everyone's working remotely, which is a great opportunity for you. But there's a direct train. I mean, the train itself is 45 to 50 minutes, something like that. But of course, you need to count your commute to the train, which can 5 minutes to 10 minutes if you have a car, and then when you get off the train to where within Tel Aviv you're working.
That's awesome. And what's that like for you, the commute? Do you find
I don't commute. I have I have an office in Pardes Chana. I build my own business.
My husband
amazing.
works.
Okay.
My husband works in tech, and he actually works in Ra'anana.
Yeah.
And he commutes by bus because the train is not very convenient to that area. and I think it takes like about an hour, door to door, which is not so
That's
bad. It's
no door to door. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
bad. I mean, also with tech here, a lot of people have flexible, not extremely flexible hours, but they don't have to start like exactly at 9. So if you leave a little bit after rush hour and you start working at 10, you really save all the rush hour traffic.
oh, that's so interesting because when we were in LA, same. My husband would never go to work at 9. Like everyone show up at the office at 10:30, 11, so they would all miss the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, so it's very similar here.
Yeah.
It's like people also stay later and then they miss the rush hour traffic on
Exactly.
the way
Yeah.
back.
Oh, that's good to know. So it's very similar to the way they do it by us. Okay, cool. So let's talk. Naomi, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit? I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Just Yoel doesn't. I don't think
But,
Yoel knows you.
No, I haven't
um,
had the opportunity.
yeah, so we came from Miami Beach in 2012, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be by the beach and we wanted to be in the north. So we started out in Naharia. We were there
Yeah.
for a year. And you're talking about work. So work-wise, it wasn't very convenient living there. It was very
Too
hard
far.
because commuting. Yeah, like all the jobs were closer to the center.
Yes.
Also, I mean, the community-wise wasn't for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to Ra'anana. We lived in Ra'anana for 4 years.
Wow.
And then for the last year that we lived there, we decided we wanted to buy a house, and the prices in Ra'anana were like crazy. Like
Yeah.
we saw in our budget like 3 or 4 bedroom apartments, and we started looking like farther and farther north of Ra'anana to see like where we could find a house in our budget.
Yes.
And Pardes Chana was just a very good option because the housing was affordable and because there are a lot of very good education options here. Like we knew we would have a good choices for our schools for our kids. And because there are so many different options, like the people send their kids to the school that they want to send it to. It's not like you send your kids to that school because that's the default option.
Uh-huh.
So the atmosphere in the school is also like that. The parents are there because they chose to be there. So that was
Amazing.
like,
So
yeah.
you just hit on one of the top 3 topics I wanted to discuss today, which is education. Like I said, this is a mommy group, so most of the families have young kids ranging from baby up to like, I would say the eldest is maybe 7 or 8 years old. Everyone's like around first grade, second grade, the oldest. No one has like high school kids or older kids. I think what I've discovered is everyone that has the older kids is very hesitant to do Aliyah. So the younger ones, it seems more of a possibility for them to have a smoother transition with the educational system and learning the language and all that kind of stuff. So that's really good to hear. Yoel, would you agree with that, what she was saying about the educational system?
No, yeah. Pardes Chana is known to have the best education system. I actually had a woman who was speaking in my house before the first elections last year about
Yeah.
education. And yeah, she spoke highly of the education. There's a lot of options. The religious girls' schools win national awards here in Pardes Chana. So if for the girls, I don't think
And
there's a religious
what
boys
about for the
option.
boys? Are the boys' schools
I don't
good?
think there's a boys' religious high
There,
school.
there is
There's
no
a
religious high school, but there are in like surrounding cities in Zichron or Akiva, Hadera, which I mean, it's like a 15-minute drive. Like
Oh,
for
okay.
Americans, it's like, yeah. I mean, even if you live in Jerusalem, you go farther than that inside the city to school. So it's really not so bad. It's like,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
good. Yeah, that's
yeah.
really good to know. Okay, so let's talk now. I know Yoel only has a half hour today, so I want to focus on his thing. Naomi, you didn't mention that you work in real estate. That's what you do, right?
Yes, I'm a real estate agent.
Okay, so we'll talk more of like the housing questions afterwards,
Okay.
since he has to go soon. So Yoel, I want to hear your experience and your wife's experience as far as um, the community. What's it been like? Is it warm? Is it welcoming? What's the diversity? The religious levels? Is it learning centered? Things like that.
well, so if you're looking for like the softest landing for a community and to be as American as possible, I don't recommend Pardes Chana.
Okay.
It's just not an English-speaking town. My guess is probably about 200 families that are Anglo-speaking, and about like 44,000 people live here. It will be about 55,000 in the next 11 years. And so, I mean, it's really not. When I moved here 7 years ago, I mean, we were one of like the first like 15 families. So there was a strong community and everyone hung out together because it's all you had. Thankfully, like I said, Pardes Chana probably is almost 200 families, 150 plus families that are maybe over 100 families for sure that are Anglo. There's enough that you get to choose who you want to hang out with. So that kind of community aspect is kind of gone. You can kind of compare it to if you go to a small shul, everyone knows each other. But if you go to a large shul that has like, 150 families, you recognize everyone, but you don't even know everyone's name and you hang out with your kind of your inside group. So it's not like that community isn't so prevalent in a sense, but it's still very much there because we're still mostly Anglos amongst overwhelmingly Israelis. I mean, if you're looking for an easy landing culturally, then I don't recommend Pardes Chana. I do recommend somewhere that's a lot more Anglos, Ranana, Jerusalem, Efrat, Beit Shemesh. That's my personal opinion.
And
Yeah,
what
so
about, sorry,
yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, I was going to say, religious wise, if you're looking for shuls that have like activities for kids or programs during the week for women or learning or things like that, do they have things like that?
I mean, they do, yes, but not like if that's what you're looking for, like hardcore, like community people. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding that like it's not like when you're in America, when you're a Jew living amongst like Goyim, there's more of that community that you try to build that's more synagogue centered. But like I go to one synagogue that's just a small room that's like 12 guys, and then during the day I go to a synagogue that's outdoors and I take my daughters, and I was outdoors before the pandemic too. So it depends. So I
But there
mean,
are
like,
a lot of activities. I would say, like, I mean, when we lived in other cities in Israel, like we never had such a selection of activities here. Like for the kids, there's like shiurim and after school classes, like
No,
so
I
many
mean,
things. Like,
but those are not
and
connected to the shul, right? That's just in
right,
general,
so
like
right, but they're
creative
not
stuff.
connected to the shul. But like, there's kind of like, people are connected to all different types of groups here. Like every person that you meet would be like, okay, I'm connected to one group from my shul, one group from the school, and one group from my neighborhood, and one. So you'll kind of hang out or go to events from all of those groups. It's not like
Yeah,
everyone is like, just you do everything with the one shul community, like
yeah.
Yoel said. But there is a lot to do. It's not all around one community.
Right. Well, that's a really good thing to hear because I know from my experience of being in shuls in Israel, because my family is mainly Israeli and they live in the south, and their shuls is like people go, they daven, they come home. There's no schmoozing, there's no kiddush, there's nothing. It's just go daven, come home. And so I like you were saying, Yoel, like the center of communal life is in America around the shul. So I'm trying to get a sense like, how do you make friends? How do you get to know people? How do you connect if not within the shul environment, you know?
We didn't have a problem
yeah,
meeting people. Like, I think I lived in Ra'anana for 4 years and I met less people than I met here in about half a year.
Wow.
Just, I mean, Yoel, you wanted to say something? Just,
sure, if I may. So I mean, one is in general. I mean, your kids' school, parents of your kids, where your kids go to school, is one way. I mean, and then the other way is work. I mean, I do at least from work. So I mean, I work a lot. So a lot of people kind of in my professional circle or do similar lines of work within the Anglos and Pardes Chana.
Yeah.
Those I usually tend to hang out with those people because they're kind of have a similar mindset. Um, in a sense. So I hang out with a lot of marketers, salespeople, people in technology. That's kind of so that's who I prefer to hang out with and spend my time with. But so I
So
mean,
is that much of a scene where you are? Is there like a tech scene in Pardes Chana?
no,
Oh, okay.
not particularly. I mean, there's some. We're next door to Kesari. Kesari's business district is a throw away from here. We share a train station. There's a handful of tech companies there.
Uh-huh.
But there isn't. But I only need, you only need one or two friends, in my opinion, a couple good friends to rely on. Uh, yeah. So I mean, it's Pardes Chana is not a normal. I know you're asking some of these questions about like landing at Pardes Chana, but I want to like. I want like I think you're asking a lot of general questions, but Pardes Chana is not like normal place. Pardes Chana is really unique. It's got a lot of the cultural is very unique. I mean, I live in the Yemenite neighborhood. There are 6 Yemenite shows within a couple-minute walk. Like much of Israel, there are parks, yeah, Yemenite shows, yeah.
Wow.
And they're very small, though. Um, but it's also, I mean, there's a lot of hippies here. But they're not like American hippies or Israeli hippies. So they have families and faith. There's no like single people here. You leave, you come back to Pardes Chana when you're married. There isn't anyone single that's 25 or older, like seldom, there. But generally speaking, it's very family oriented.
Yeah.
It's probably 25% religious. There's no Haredim, just so people get an idea kind of about the community. It's
Yeah.
very green anywhere you look around. So it, so I mean that's kind of, and it's got a strong hippie vibe. It's also got a strong faith vibe, and you feel that throughout all the communities, the people here, and it's got a really nice culture center in downtown Pardes Chana in particular. It's very nice. It's very warm. It's very inviting. It's very social, music oriented and all that, and they're really building up downtown. It's actually looking really nice. So. It's not like a normal place. If you're a type A person, I don't recommend Pardes Chana. It's not for type A people.
My thing is, I want the resources of the city, but the vibe of a moshav.
Right. So it has that for sure, because it has everything, because I said it's like 45,000 people. It has all the resources of the city. It's next door to Hadera, which has got like 91,000 people. So you have all of that, but everywhere you look, it is green. There are tall trees in every direction that you look.
That's like Yoel. That's music to my ears right now.
But I want to say something. I mean, a lot of people are going to hear similar answers about community culture and all that. People need to know why not to move here. If you're type A, if you need a lot of Anglos, if let's say you want to make Aliyah and your spouse doesn't, and you want to make it as easy for them culturally as possible, don't move to Pardes Chana. If you're very type A, don't move to Pardes Chana. If you don't like seeing people walking around barefoot, don't move to Pardes Chana. You need to understand, like, no, but that's Pardes Chana.
Yeah.
So it's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's very much like, it's not, it's definitely for unique. If you feel like you stand out a bit, like in whatever way you do,
yeah,
like you're not under, like Pardes Chana is a place for you. But if you're type A and you're looking for a soft angle landing, don't come here.
I love that. I love the clarity.
Because I feel like you can get the same answers for most of the places you speak to. At Fraud, Green, you can look around. You have all these, okay, you're like, and you're not, no one knows that you need to start to decide. You have to kill off some options. So I want to be very clear. But if you are strange, if you are like, into like, you know what I mean? If you are a little bit into that, if you do like a little more, there's a lot of health food and organic store food.
Yeah, my husband's like vegan, so you're talking.
So he's totally fine. Like 40% of Pardes Chana is probably like vegan.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you know what I mean? You have to understand, if you stand out like that, Pardes Chana is the right fit. But if you're type A, don't waste your time. Don't even consider it.
I want to tell you, you haven't scared me off. It's actually like things that I really want to hear. So I'm very happy to hear that. What do you feel is like the thing that really keeps you there? Like, what do you love so much about living in Pardes Chana?
I love that. We built a house. I love my house. That's to be honest with you. I mean, I love the culture. I like the culture. You kind of, I like the people. I like the vibe. I like the location. I like that's far away. I like has everything I need, but it's not a city by any means.
And which cities did you say are like the closest big cities to you guys?
Hadera and Caesarea.
Hadera and Caesarea, okay.
Caesarea is not a big city. It's just well known. Caesarea is small. Caesarea has only 6,000 residents.
I'm curious to know, what other cities did you consider before you moved to Pardes Chana? What were like your other top two?
Well, I was looking at up and coming, so it depends for what. So there was, I went from, I mean, if you're looking for up and coming or you want to buy something I appreciate, I mean, I think Nahariya is great. I think Beersheva's amazing opportunities. It's the only city that can build the north, south, east, and west. It has open land in every direction. Any city that's near Beersheva, that serves Beersheva, will do very well, like Dimona and things of the sort. Also,
yeah, definitely in both places.
There's the new airport near Timna Park, 20 minutes north of Eilat. So any towns there that support it will see an economic boon. Beit Sha'an is run down, but I think it's got amazing opportunity for real estate. Beit Sha'an is up in the Jezreel Valley. Also, if you do like green and things, I mean, the Shomron and the Golan has amazing opportunities. You can buy real estate so cheap there. By Israeli standards. I mean, if you work remotely, then that's a wonderful option also, or if you're self-employed and work on the internet. I would highly recommend there. You can get all of the advantages of low cost of living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a lot of different options. I mean, so.
I want to ask you regarding tech just for a few minutes, because I know you have to go soon. How's it working right now as far as tech? I know that obviously people working from home. I mean, my husband had his approval now from his company to work from home permanently. Ever since Corona started, that's been like the new thing in the industry. Have you seen that also in Israel, where more people are working from home on an indefinite basis?
I don't think it's indefinite. I mean, I have like 15 video calls a day, and most people are at home. Okay. They used to be at the office. So, I mean, a couple are at the office, a few are. So, I mean, if you can work remotely, they're letting people, especially because there's been a little bit of a surge in the cases. I don't think this is indefinite. I think some companies might move to there. I think people are going to be more flexible about setting your own hours or working from home once or twice a week. I don't think this, so I think there's going to be much more tolerance for remote working, but I still think the centralization, especially tech companies, I mean, most of their employees are engineers, R&D, product, and they need people around then to be involved in that. That's the lifeblood of the business, is the technology, and those people need to be in the lab together. So there's something to that.
For sure. Now, would you say that the center of Israel still remains the core of where the tech industry is?
Yeah, that's not changing. I mean, it is decentralizing, but that's never going to change.
Because I've been talking to my Aliyah lady, and she's pushing Beersheba. She says Beersheba is opening up a whole new tech center, and there are a lot of major companies are opening up there.
Yeah, a big cybersecurity hub. Most of my clients are cybersecurity companies, so I'm very well aware.
My husband is going to come say hello.
Hello, my husband.
Say hello. Say hello.
Hello.
What's up? Hello. How are you?
Good to see you, man. Who is this?
It's Yoel.
Oh, Yoel. Hey, you remember me?
I absolutely remember you. Could never forget. How you doing?
Thank God. How are you?
Fabulous. Thank God.
All right. So maybe I'll connect you guys.
Why don't you sit? I'm going to listen in. I'm just going to sit on the side.
Okay. Maybe I'll put you guys in touch, and you can talk tech and see. Because really for us, one of the biggest filters, I would love to live further up north, but the biggest filter is commute work-wise. Like that's the big thing.
Yep. If you can remove, I agree. I mean, the Golan's a great option in the Shomron too. I mean, in general, for cost of living, and if you like green and quiet, then that's great. I mean, I love the Golan is gorgeous. It's my favorite place. I love the Golan in general. I love driving around the Golan.
But is it safe?
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be safe?
Isn't it right by the borders of Lebanon?
If we're having this conversation, then you shouldn't move to Israel at all.
Why?
I don't think I have to answer that. I think you know that. I mean, if you're worried about safety, don't move to Israel. If you're worried about being near borders, Israel's so small. We're, by American standards, Tel Aviv's near the border. Their missiles fall in Tel Aviv, so it's not. Yeah. If you're that scared, I think anyone having a Aliyah conversation.
I'm not scared. I just have my American hat on right now, and I think we've all realized that there's no place that's safe anymore. I mean, America's not safe either. So
maybe more.
What?
Yeah, no, I agree. Domestic terrorism is actually scarier than foreign terrorism.
Yeah, so it's not a question of that. Well, listen, y'all, I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
And I feel like you gave us a lot of clarity here. I know we're going to be talking to Naomi about the real estate market. Is there anything you want to say as far as if we do decide to go with Pardes Chana, do you recommend any neighborhood in particular, or renting versus buying? What's your take on the whole real estate?
No matter what, wherever you move to in Israel, you rent the first year and figure it out. Make sure you like where you live, and then find the right, even if you want to stay there in that city, you want to find and make sure you find the right community for you. So we do 100% rent. A side note, by the way, to make as easy landing possible, bring a lift. Bring your shit with you. You don't want to buy new beds and everything. Everything here costs like 35% more. Bring your stuff with you. Bring a lift. It makes it so much easier.
You're like the only person I've heard to say. Everyone says the opposite, and I'm like, how do you start from scratch there with like?
You don't. It's ridiculous. You don't want to start from scratch. It's during a pandemic. You bring your stuff. Why are you making it hard for yourself? Yeah. It makes no sense unless your couches are nasty because they're big volume and you pay by volume, not weight for shipments. That's the only thing I can think of you would leave. But but even still, like we want to find new sheets, and that makes no sense. I mean, if you have a family, you bring a lift. What are you going to buy beds for everyone again, and mattresses, sheets, like, and toys, and tables? Who has time for that? And it's so much more expensive anyway. And you're going to have to. Another thing is make sure you already come with your driver license, because it's so much easier to convert to get your license here. You get like 40 lessons and it's expensive. If you already come with your American license, you just have to take one lesson, then you can take an exam and you got it. So that's a big thing. The two community, I mean, there's a neighborhood called Neve Asher, which I recommend at Anglos to land in, or west, kind of like Aman Neve Merchav, or west, or Neve Pardesim. Anything that's south of there's a main road called Habanim or Derech LaMerchav that separates north and south Pardes Chana and Karkor. I would recommend the south side. And as an Anglo, I also recommend Pardes Chana. There are a lot more Anglos, a lot more shuls, a lot more community in Pardes Chana. Pardes Chana, Karkor is one municipality. Karkor is east, Pardes Chana is west. So I would try to focus to the southwest part of Pardes Chana.
Southwest. Okay, that's solid. And then as far as costs of house, if you want to buy a house with a backyard, what's the average sort of property
$650,000 at least.
Wow, it's not bad at all. It's very good.
More. It's probably more than that. That's for a small house, probably, but or an older house rather.
And is the property going up?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to come and move here, and there isn't really anywhere more to build. The only new building that there is are towers. Okay. There aren't like land for sale. If there is, it's usually a dunam, which things like 4 acres, and someone cuts in half and sells you half. Which is what we did.
So when you guys bought, did you buy before, like when they just bought the land, like one of those projects where you buy in advance?
No, I was looking for land for a long time. I was walking every morning at 5:30 in the morning looking for houses for sale, putting the slips in people's mailboxes, seeing if they want to sell it off the market, trying to find an opportunity. And on my walk around the corner from where I lived in the neighborhood that I loved, suddenly a piece of land went up for sale, and I entered a bidding war.
Wow.
And that's how I got it. And I offered more than asking price. That was the only way I was going to win. I knew we were going to get to the asking price, so I immediately offered like 1% more than the asking price to close it. And
then you built it. You built it the way you want it.
Obviously.
Amazing. Cool. Amazing. That's so cool. Awesome. Well, Yoel, thank you so much. It was so fun chatting.
My pleasure. If anyone has any more questions, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. It's a pleasure. Bye, Naomi, and bye, Rina.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers. Good luck, everyone, in your aliyah.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, Naomi. What did you think about Yoel's take of Pardes Chana? He had a very strong opinion about things.
Yeah, no, everything he said was true. I mean, I just think that it maybe isn't like a soft landing language-wise, but community-wise, like if you might go to Ra'anana and there's a lot of English-speaking people there, and you go to school and your kid will have a lot of English speakers in the class, but it's very hard to meet people.
That's what I've heard. That's very consistent with many people I've heard who live there. They said it's not so friendly.
Yeah, here it might be like less people and less English-speaking people, but because of that, like people like stick together. You know, like we have these like women's Seudah Shlishit, like once a month, like potluck Seudah Shlishit at somebody's house. So like you meet people. And there's, you know, someone will make like before Pesach in her yard, like you just bring your chametz and you eat Shabbat meal. Like they have things like that here all the time that you can actually meet people from that, you know, and people are just like, oh, another Anglo family moved in. So like people reach out, you know, and I mean, in my son's class, there's, let's say they have like 3 Anglo kids out of 40. So they go out, like they have their separate English class. So then you know, you kind of meet the parents because you have to interact with them, and you meet them after school and at the park and whatever. Like you could make friends that way. It's actually easier to make friends that way.
Is there like a Pardes Chana mommy group?
We have a WhatsApp group, a mama's group, we call it. Like, yeah, there's a mama's group on WhatsApp, and there's a mama's group on Facebook also, Pardes Chana
Nice.
Mamas.
And how many years have you been there?
We're here 3 years now.
And you like it better than Ranana?
No, I like it much better. I mean, I would say like what I like the most here is the pace of the place. Like, it's just, people are like on a slower pace. Not everything has to be like arranged ahead of time, and you know, people are more spontaneous. Like, you know, like Yoel said, like you can see kids outside without, you know, barefoot. I mean, my kids, I don't let them go out barefoot, but they're still like, they'll, you know, I don't care if they walk out in pajamas, or like, you know, we live near the field, so we can walk, you know, just be like at 6 in the evening, be like, okay, let's go take a walk in the fields. You know, we have like, you know, like 3 miles worth of walking in the fields, fields next to our house.
Is there like a path?
Yeah, there are a bunch of paths. Like, you know, we've run into like stables and camels, and you know, there's so many things that you discover like on the way. And everywhere you live in Pardes Chana, you're like 5 minutes away from one of these fields, because it's just surrounded by fields. So you'll always be able to just walk and have a lot of green, you know, to just walk through, as opposed to walking in the city. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And is there a kids' playground? Are there a lot of playgrounds?
So there are playgrounds. It's not like in other cities. Like, there are cities that have like amazing playgrounds. Pardes Chana is known to be like less, you know, advanced in that, you know, section. But the thing is that there's so much to do outside. Like, the kids will just take the bicycle. They don't need the playground. Like, I do take my kids to the playground like a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
But there are things to do without the playground as well. Like, it's not like it's like you have to have the playground.
Where do people hang out on Shabbos afternoon with the kids?
So the neighborhood that I live in is basically like, you know, it's about 50 houses that you don't have to cross the street to get to any of them. And the kids just like go in and out. Like, if you're sitting in my living room, you'll hear the door slam like 200 times an hour, because they go in and out, and the neighbor comes in and they go to the neighbor's house, and they like go to the park and then come back and come back. Yeah, so that's like in my neighborhood. There are other neighborhoods like that as well.
Which neighborhood are you in?
I live in a part of Neve Asher, like in the most southern part of Neve Asher. Like, we live like right by the fields, like the most southern part of Pardes Chana.
Wow.
But there is that, they have that in a lot of areas. Like, you know, the kids just go to friends. Like, they can go themselves. Like, my youngest is 7 years old. Like, the kids can really go themselves to friends. And or they hang out in the backyard, or, you know, sometimes we'll take a walk in the fields after we take our naps. They also have Ezra and Bnei Akiva here.
They have a Bnei Akiva?
They have a Bnei Akiva, and they have an Ezra, which is separate, like boys and girls.
Where do religious boys go? Because my son is going to probably be in first grade when he enters.
So I have 3 boys, and they all, like, my oldest one just finished 6th grade, so he's going to go to middle school now. But they were all in the same school this year called Noam, which is, I mean, it has boys and girls, but in separate classes. It's a good school for boys, and it's a good school for girls. It's like a half private and half public, because it has all the advantages of a public school, but they make it private because it's Torani. So there's like extra Torah classes, and they finish a little bit later. Instead of finishing at like 1 o'clock, they finish at 2:30.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah. They also, because they separate the classes, so you kind of pay for the fact that you have like smaller classes. You know, my sons each have like 20 boys in their class, as opposed to like
considered
schools that
small?
don't have like, there are schools that can have like 35 kids in the class.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it also depends on the grade, because there are some grades with bigger classes. It just worked out that way for them.
Yeah.
But that's,
Let's talk about real estate now. So like in your neighborhood next to the fields around there, how close is it to the shuls? Is it very close to like the central shul?
We have a shul that's like a 2-minute walk from our house, a Sephardi shul that's called the Shtibel. So it's like Sephardi,
but it calls the Shtibel.
Right, exactly, yeah. Like, people are like, wait, you sure it's Sephardi? Yeah, it's Sephardi, but like a lot of different people go to it. And most shuls like that are here. Even the Ashkenazi shuls, you'll find Moroccans there and you'll find Yemenites there. Like everything is mixed here. But it just means that they say like all the Sephardi like additions, but there could be Friday night like somebody that is davening and he'll just do Karlibach because that's what he wants to do.
Is there a Chabad presence at all?
Right. So we have that shul. We have another shul like 5 minutes away. That's like Ashkenazi, like Yeki style shul. Like they daven for 2 hours and not a minute longer on Shabbat morning. Chabad, they used to be a Chabad here, and the building that they were in, like they found asbestos in it, so they had to close down the building. So they're kind of looking for a place now. I mean, there is Chabad and there's a Chabad house, but they don't have a shul right now. They're kind of looking for a place.
So where do they daven?
They'll just daven in the other shuls, like the shul that, the Ashkenazi shul near our house. Sometimes the Chabad family comes there. Like they'll just, it's not. There aren't many Chabad families here. Anyway, like the people when they had the Chabad shul open, there were maybe like 5 Chabad families there, and the rest were just people from the neighborhood or people that wanted to come to a place that started a little later. Would you say that some parts of Pardes Chana are more expensive than others depending on the Anglo community at all? It doesn't depend on the Anglo community. Like Neve Asher is probably like in Pardes Chana the most expensive neighborhood. And it actually has the most Anglos in this area. It's not like infested with Anglos. There's just like the shul have like 5-6 families that are Anglo. As opposed to in other neighborhoods that there'll be like 2-3 families.
Right, we're not talking big numbers here.
It's not big numbers, but it's like people, they're just more families around. Like if you wanted to walk to a Shabbat meal, you had more options like of Anglo families that are walking distance from you.
Yeah. So like
the other neighborhoods.
Sorry, go ahead.
The other neighborhoods have Anglos as well in Pardes Chana. There's like, let's say Neve Peldesim is like it's cheaper than Neve Asher, and some people go there because it's just more affordable. I mean, the houses are only a little cheaper, like I would say maybe like 10% cheaper than Neve Asher.
Yeah.
But that neighborhood has buildings also. Like Neve Asher has only houses. So if you could afford an apartment, you can't afford a house, then a lot of these people go to Neve Peldesim and they'll live in the buildings there. Really nice apartments, like 4 bedrooms with a balcony. Like they're newer buildings, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So there are some Anglos in that area. How much is it
for an apartment like that? Like one of those 4-bedroom apartments?
An apartment like that would be like $1.5 million shekel, which is like, I would say like $400,000.
And how much is it for a house in the Neve Asher area?
A house in Neve Asher, I mean, it just depends what defines usually the price would be the amount of land that the house has, because you can have a house that's like 160 meters on 250 meter land or on 500 meter land, and then the price would be different because of the amount of land that's attached. But I think the prices would start from like 2,400,000.
How much is
about like 650,000 or 600, like 600,000. No, like 650. Yeah.
And are these detached houses or attached?
No, the smaller houses are usually attached. Like they have 2 houses attached. They call it du mishpachti, like 2 families. You don't, it's not like you feel like every house has their own entrance, has their own yard. They're separated. They just have a connecting wall, basically.
Do you hear the neighbors when you live in a building in a house like that?
Where I live, I hear my neighbor only if it's like really late at night or early in the morning and my neighbor's walking around in high heels. Like I don't hear them talking. I don't know what they hear from my house. They probably hear a lot from my house, from my kids.
What is it called when it's a detached house on its own, not joined? What is that called?
It's called Bait Boded.
Bait Boded. Does that even exist in Pardes Chana?
It exists, but it would be more expensive because a house like that would have to be on more land. Because the reason they attach the houses also is so that you can enjoy more of the yard. If you if you make a house that's not attached on like 250 meters, you lose, like you won't really have a yard, because it'll kind of be, the yard will be very narrow on all sides. Once you put it like on one side of the lot, then you kind of have a bigger yard. So
how much would it be for a house that's like detached?
A detached house would probably be starting about 3 million shekel, which is like $800,000, something like that, or a little more, $850,000. Yeah.
So let's take an example of a detached house, for example, and you want to put down a deposit. You're an Ole. You get, I don't know what kind of benefits you get as an Ole for a mortgage or whatever. But how much do you need to put down for a deposit for that kind of a house?
Everyone in Israel has to put down 25%. If you don't own another property, if it's your only property in Israel, you have to put down a minimum of 25% of the price of the house. You obviously have to get approved for a mortgage of the remaining 75%. Like, it depends on your approval, but if you do get approved for 75%, then you can use that combination.
And what
benefits? There aren't really benefits. Like, we didn't use any benefits when we bought a house. Like, the benefits for the mortgage haven't been updated for a lot of years. So the interest rates now are better than the interest rates that you would get with your benefits.
Yeah, that's what my Nefesh Benefesh lady said. She's like, don't even bother. She's like, you'll get a better rate just going to a mortgage lender. So we had a chat with an agent in Ra'anana, and he was like, you need to put 50% down. I'm like,
who is this agent? I used to work in Ra'anana. I'm just curious.
I'll tell you. Justin, I think his name is Justin.
Maybe he wasn't there when I was working there.
I'll
tell you, if you're not an Israeli citizen, you have to put 50% down.
Maybe that's what it is. He's used to dealing with foreigners.
If you're not an Israeli citizen, you have to put 50% down. And if you own another property, you have to put 50% down. If you, let's say, have an investment property in Yerushalayim or something, and you come here to buy a house, you can only get a mortgage for 50%. Also, people that are non-citizens, or non-residents, then also have to, but it also affects the purchase tax, because if you're not a citizen, you pay very high purchase tax, as well as if it's your second property, you also pay very high purchase tax. It can be a difference of like $100,000. Like,
that's substantial.
Big difference.
And do they? I know in America, property tax can be included as part of the mortgage payment. Do they do that in Israel too?
You're saying like the purchase tax?
Yeah, the purchase tax, the tax on the house.
No. You basically have to have 25%, and you have to have agent fee, lawyer fee, and purchase tax, all as a down payment. And then you can get 75% of the price of the property as a mortgage.
How much is agent fee, purchase fee, lawyer fee, all those things? How much is that?
So assuming it's your only property in Israel. So
only property, yeah.
Right. So up to $1,700,000, you don't pay any purchase tax. And from then on, there's like it's rated like based on the price, but it's around it's an average of 5% tax from $1,700,000. So let's say you'd buy a house for $2 million, you'd pay 5% on $300,000. That would be the purchase tax. The agent fee is 2%, and the lawyer's fee is 0.5%, and you add VAT to that. VAT is 17%. 17% of the 2%. You basically you pay 2%, and then plus 70% of that would be.
So if you buy a property that's less than 1,700,000 shekels, there's zero tax.
There's zero tax, right?
Wow.
If that's your
How much is that in dollars?
Around $500,000.
Wow, that's amazing. If you can find something, where can you find houses like that in Pardes Chana for that amount?
Apartments, but even if you go to 2 million or a little more, the purchase tax is not so high. Like on 2 million shekel house, you'd pay maybe $5,000 purchase tax.
Okay.
If it's your only property, it's not going to be too high. It's not it doesn't add that much to the price.
And if we wanted to start with Pardes Chana as our first place in Israel, and we wanted to rent, are there options for rentals there, or do most people buy there?
There are rentals in the summer. It's crazy. There's a crazy rush for rentals because everybody wants a house and everybody moves in July, August. But after that, after September, October, or after the Chagim, even in November, some houses can be available for 3 months because the demand is very low that time. So then you would have more availability, and it would be easier for you to find something without worrying that you might go to the bathroom and then lose the house, which has happened to people. So after around October, November, that it doesn't happen anymore. But there are rentals for apartments. There's more availability. Just most people want to rent houses.
How much is it to rent a house?
The average for a house would be like 6,500 shekel, which is about like a little less than $2,000 a month.
For how many bedrooms?
For either 4 or 5 bedrooms. Some houses have 4 bedrooms, some houses have 5 bedrooms.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, in Ra'anana, you'd pay that for a 4-bedroom apartment. Here, you'd pay that for a house with a yard and in a good neighborhood. I'm talking, let's say, like in a Neve.
Yes.
I just rented out a house in Neve Pardes, like a 4-year-old house with 4 bedrooms for 5,800 shekel, which is around like $1,800, something like that.
So if we wanted to move around May, when would we start looking into renting?
If you wanted to make Aliyah and arrive in May, that would be great because most houses don't get rented at that time. Most people want to move like July.
Right.
So you would start looking at around March, more or less. Like that's when you would see things available. Things that are available at that time and are empty, a lot of landlords are going to be like, no, I'm not going to rent it for May because maybe someone will come a little earlier and pay the month of April. So sometimes you might decide to be flexible. If it's a great house, you'll tell them, you know what, I'll pay for half of April just so I can get the house and I know I have a place to go to. Yeah. Or some landlords, they know that it's worth having a tenant as opposed to just waiting and then you might lose a tenant. So it's
for sure, at least have something in their hands. And how do people get around there? Is it a walkable place or do you need to have a car?
It depends where you live. Like the place that we moved to, like one of the things I was most nervous about was because I always lived in a city my whole life. I lived in like 5 different cities and I always lived where like you just walk 2 minutes and you're at the supermarket, the pizza store, like everything. Like in Miami Beach, we lived like, I don't know if you know Tower 41. Tower 41. Yeah. Like, so
that's like as central as it gets.
Yeah, that's the way I lived like my whole life, always like in the center. And we moved here, it was like, I can't go anywhere without a car. And I was a little worried, but it's just the green and the fact that you just walk and it's quiet kind of makes up for that. But
you get around with your car.
Yeah, and there are areas like in Neve Pardes because there are a lot more people in that neighborhood because there are buildings. Yeah. So there are things there. There's like a shopping center there with a pizza store, a supermarket, a pharmacy, like an ice cream shop. They have a gym there. So there are neighborhoods that you could walk around. Like Neve specifically is like very spread out. That's what people like about. That's why the Anglos like it because it reminds them of like the suburbs.
Yes.
So yeah.
But you get the resources of a big city, like the pharmacies, the markets, all that stuff.
Of course, because everything is like a 3-minute drive from my house, like literally 3 minutes. Like the library, the pool, all the after school activities. The school is about 5-minute drive from my house.
How do you like the schools?
I specifically like the school that my kids go to. I think most of the people in that school like it. There's another school that's like kind of like Waldorf style. Yeah. So the people that send there also are very happy with that school. It's just there are people like more conventional, more like there's another school called Morashat that it's a public school and it's more like artistic. And the people that go there are also very happy there. Just like everybody kind of like chose the school that they want.
Was the right fit. How do people find out the quality of schools? Like here, because it's private schools, like for example, I live in Hollywood, Florida now, right? We just moved out here like 3 months ago. So I got on the mommy groups. I started asking around which schools, what are the pros and cons. When you're in Israel and it's more of like a public school system, how do you decide what's the best school?
Right. So it depends on the area. Like when we lived in Ra'anana, we couldn't really choose a school because it was wherever you lived, that's the school you were assigned to, unless you asked for an exception and then they had to approve your exception.
Yeah.
Here in Pardes Chana, the secular public schools are like that, but the religious public schools are not like that. They're basically like you can choose whatever school you want to go to. Okay. Like all the public religious schools are basically open to everyone in Pardes Chana and Karkur. So, it's much more flexible that way.
That's great. That's really good to hear. And okay, so then let me ask you about the car, because I just can't imagine moving to a place with kids without having a car. Did you guys buy or lease?
We bought a car. I mean, I don't think we've done what other people do. Like we're very into like simple. We're very simple people, and we don't need like the best, nicest car. So we actually got two cars that were about 7 years old each, and you know, they work well. Like we have 3 kids, so we got like 2 sedans. You know, if people have like 4 kids, they'll get like a minivan.
I'm sorry, my son popped in. I didn't hear you. So did you say you got used cars?
Yeah, we went to like a used car, like Avis. We got our last car in Avis. We went there and we just told them our budget, and we told them like we want a sedan and what can you offer us? And they offered us a bunch of cars, and we asked to see the report on them, whatever. We just chose a car. Like that's how we bought the 2 last cars we bought. That's how we bought them.
And
but some people lease. Some people like to have like a new car, so they'll lease. Like
and then that's probably much more expensive.
It does come out more expensive, yeah.
For sure. And did you say that your husband works in tech?
Yeah.
What does he do?
He works, it's like the department he works for is called customer success. He works with like customers all over the world. In a company called Anadot. It's like they have a product that detects anomalies in their clients' product. Like, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but you can look it up. Yeah.
I feel like that's like the classic tech wife answer. I don't really know.
No, I actually did work. Before I was a real estate agent, I actually did work in like, not in Israel, when we lived in New Jersey. I did some programming work and stuff, but I left it very quickly because it wasn't for you. Yeah. I like to work with people. I like to be around all the time. And like, you know,
flexible schedule.
Yeah, it's flexible, but then sometimes I'll be talking to people at 11 o'clock at night and then at 7 o'clock in the morning. So like it's flexible, but there are no hours. Like,
right.
People,
that's true.
You know, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay. So Naomi, I really appreciate your time. I feel really good about our discussion. Now, if we wanted to go for something that was like a not attached house, and do you have properties that you can show me? Or is there much inventory is what I'm saying? Is there inventory for that type of a house, or is it limited?
It really depends on your budget. If you tell me that your budget is like 800,000, which is like the lower range, so then I wouldn't have too much to show you. But if you tell me your budget is like, okay, I have $1 million, I'd probably have more to show you because it'll be like kind of, you know, more into the range. Like the higher you go, you'd have more availability for that.
And when you said before about qualifying for a mortgage, do they go based, what are the things that they look for? I know here, like credit, income, all that kind of stuff.
They look at 2 things. They look at 2 things. Your income, your net income, which is net after taxes and also after like loans. Let's say you leased a car, so they're going to look at your payments for the car. Yeah. So it's like net after all the loans that you have. You have your return on the mortgage has to be maximum of 40% of that net. Like, let's say your net is, you know, $10,000, like your return can be maximum $4,000 a month.
Do you understand what she's saying? Because I don't understand what she's saying. Hold on, I'm going to put my, can you just repeat that? He's going to listen so he can understand what she's saying. I was asking her, what are the requirements for approval when you want to get a mortgage? So she was explaining it. Go ahead.
So basically they look at your net income. Your net income, like after taxes, what's net on your stub or like both of your stubs.
Yeah.
Minus any like commitments that you have, like any loans that you have to pay.
Or lease or whatever.
Right, okay. And then they'll 40% of that, up to 40% of that can be your monthly return on the mortgage.
What does that mean, monthly return on the mortgage? Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, the monthly, how much you're going to pay every month, basically.
Oh, your monthly payment.
If you take a mortgage of $1 million shekel, the monthly payments for 30 years would be about 5,000 shekel. So, you know, that's more or less the ratio based on the interest rates of today, more or less, you know, like.
And what if 5,000 shekels on $1 million shekel property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask.
No, on $1 million shekel mortgage, like if you bought.
Mortgage.
Yeah.
If you after you put the deposit, what's left in the loan?
5,000 for $1 million mortgage. Okay.
Let me ask you something. Other than Pardes Chana, what other communities do you work with?
Is this your specialty? Yeah, I work more in Pardes Chana Karkur. Like Kesaria is really close by, but it's a totally different type of community and different housing. And I worked there a little when I moved here, but it wasn't really worth it. I'll usually refer to another agent. The same with Hadera. It's also a very different type of place. Zichron as well. Like I might.
Oh yeah, what do you think of Zichron?
I got stuck.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. What did you say?
I said, what do you think of Zichron?
I think that Zichron would be great if you were retirees. Yeah.
I've heard that too from other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, my in-laws from South Africa have friends that are there also. They're retirees, so that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's more of a community there for retirees, but I think Pardes Chana has more young families than there. I mean, there are young families in Zichron. There is a school in Zichron, but here there are more options. There's in my kids' school, there's families that come from Zichron to go to that school because they just don't have that type of option in Zichron.
And how far is Pardes Chana from Jerusalem?
But if you're not in traffic, you're driving there, it can take about an hour and 15 minutes.
Without traffic?
An hour and 15 minutes, yeah.
And is there a train that goes there?
There's a train. I mean, if you can take a train and you switch in Tel Aviv or at the airport, it would take about an hour and 10 minutes, the whole ride.
With the whole ride with switching in Tel Aviv?
Yeah, they have it. It's like sort of like calculated that it, they stop there. It's like a new train. They actually just built the train that goes all the way to Tel Aviv from Yerushalayim. It's a very fast train.
So what do? You take the train from Pardes Chana to Tel Aviv to Jerusalem?
Yeah, I mean, where we live, we actually live the same distance from the Pardes Chana station and the Binyamina station. And Binyamina, the train is express to Tel Aviv. It takes half an hour. The Pardes Chana station, it takes 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So if you live close enough to Binyamina, it's like even, and they're like 5-minute difference drive from anywhere you live in Pardes Chana anyway. But the reason people take the Pardes Chana train is because of Binyamina. There's no parking after like 6:30 in the morning. So if you have someone giving you a ride, then it's fine. Like it's definitely worth taking the train from Binyamina. Yeah.
So then, because we have family in Jerusalem, so I'm just trying to think out loud.
I also have family in Jerusalem. My parents live there. It takes us like an hour and 15 minutes to go there. And my parents come to visit us. Like you don't take the train. You drive. We drive. Yeah, I like to drive. I just like to be flexible, and I'm with the kids.
Stuff the car with all the things you need.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't like to like. They also have a bus from here. Actually, the bus goes on Route 6.
I don't do buses.
Yeah, but people usually take the bus because you don't have to switch. Like if we had guests that were coming from Yerushalayim, like a cousin that was in yeshiva in Yerushalayim, he came for Shabbat, he took the bus because it was just easier, and we'd pick him up from the bus stop. And and Friday afternoon was like an hour and 10 minutes, even by bus. It was just direct.
Totally doable. That's really good news. This was such a great call. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you. Like I said, this isn't the top of our list. You're the first call that we're doing, and we have like a whole list of communities we're going to be exploring.
I know it's hard that people can't do pilot trips now.
We have a pilot trip lined up for November. We were set to go in November.
I hope you can come.
I really hope so. You never know. Every day they tell you something else. I'm hoping, God willing. Anyway, Naomi, thank you so much. This was really wonderful.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We'll talk.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
Great.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.